Hello, y'all. This is Prime 3285, and I just want to talk about the history of the Donkey Kong series. Donkey Kong, the trilogy. Donkey Kong Country was a great game. I love playing it for the Super Nintendo. It was a great game, and it was made by a British company called Rare back in the 90s. It came out in 1994. First Donkey Kong Country game came out in 1994, and it was a great game. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. It kind of reminded me of Mario and Sonic, but it was really cool. It was really unique. It had a different look to it. It looked 3D. Rare did an amazing job with this game, and Nintendo. Donkey Kong was the first character you play as, and then his sidekick, which is Diddy Kong. The game had a great story too. It had a lot of worlds. The enemies that you face is these reptile-looking things. They called the Crims. You take on them, and other enemies such as these bees. I forgot the names they call them. Also, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong had friends on the way to help them. Like the rhino and the frog. I forgot their names, but please leave a description down below to give me their names. I forgot their names, but the game was a great game, and I enjoyed it. I still play it to this day. I got it on my Wii U. I downloaded it from Nintendo eShop, and the game just brings back so many memories. It had an amazing soundtrack, and it was the first Donkey Kong Country. First one that started it all from the series, the Donkey Kong Country series. It had an amazing soundtrack and amazing levels, and it just looked magnificent. The game was ahead of its time, and it was for the Super NES. In Japan, it was called Super Donkey Kong Country. It was called Super Donkey Kong for the Super Famicom. They also released other versions, like Donkey Kong Land. Also Donkey Kong Country later on for the Game Boy Advance. The game was just very big. It became a huge hit. A lot of people loved Donkey Kong, and I loved it too. It was a great game, and I will never forget it. It was a great game. It had a lot of characters too. This was really cool. How you could hit the select button and you could choose to play as Diddy Kong or Donkey Kong. And it was really cool how they give each other smack like a high five, and you could switch between them. Also the game had two-player mode. It had different types of styles of two-player mode. It had water levels. Which the water level sounds beautiful. I remember the water level. The theme is just so soothing and just incredible. And the boss battles were amazing in this game. And the last boss, the protagonist, the main boss, King K. Krool, he was no joke. King K. Krool, he was no joke in this game, and it was just a great game. In Japan, it was called Super Donkey Kong. Super Famicom. It was also released for the Game Boy Advance. A couple years later. It was also it was inspired by 3 games. You had Donkey Kong Land, Donkey Kong Land 2, Donkey Kong Land 3. And it was so big, it came out in 94 that it was already working on a sequel to this game. That's how big it was. They made a sequel. They even had a cartoon series. Characters in the first game was Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Funky Kong, and Candy Kong. And it led up to this massive sequel, which was the main character was Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong was in Donkey Kong position. He was the hero. Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong. Dixie Kong was Diddy Kong's girlfriend. And they found out, they got a letter from Captain K. Krul, which is the same boss in the first game. He was called King K. Krul in the first game, but he's going by Captain K. Krul. He left a letter to them saying that he kidnapped Donkey Kong, so they had to go on this quest to save Donkey Kong. Fighting the Crumb once again. They end up saving Donkey Kong. The story was more deeper than the first game. You had to save Donkey Kong. You had to save the hero. So Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong became heroes. They worked together and they saved Donkey Kong. And the second game was called Donkey Kong Country, Diddy Kong's Quest. Or you could just call it Diddy Kong Quest, but it was even bigger than the first game. They went more further. And the soundtrack, they went more further with even the music, It's just so beautiful. And, the levels, they went more further with the levels. It was just as big as the first game, if not bigger. It was really big. This is Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong Quest. The boss battles were amazing. And then I also love even the carnival level, like I think it was called Crazy Kim Land, something like that. That was a cool level, It kind of reminded me of the minecart in the first game, but instead of you on the carnival, And the roller coasters, so you was on like a skull coaster or something like that, which was sort of weird but funny at the same time. And this game seemed in some ways darker than the first game. It was darker. The enemies, he was fighting a sword, like a spirit, a sword. It explodes, after you beat it. He was fighting like the first boss you fight in the game is a big bird, and then you have to throw eggs at his head, and then later on you face him again. He's a spirit. He's like a ghost. So this game was a little more darker. It was darker. Had a little bit more of a darker tone than the first Donkey Kong Country, And the story was more serious, more deeper, because you had to save Donkey Kong, And I enjoyed playing this game just as much as I enjoyed playing the first one, And it's definitely one of the very best ones in the series. It's definitely up there with the first game, if not better, It had an amazing soundtrack, like the first game. I think the soundtrack was a little more better in the second game than the first game, but both games had an amazing soundtrack, amazing. And I gotta give it to Rare. They did an amazing job with the Donkey Kong Country, with the 3 games. They did an amazing job. It was just awesome. It was an awesome game. I really enjoyed the Donkey Kong Country series. Dixie Kong was a cool character. She could glide with her ponytail, and Diddy Kong, he was always cool too. And Donkey Kong, he was cool. I like that. Also, these games were inspired by even the later on Donkey Kong Country games. Like Tropical Freeze, Donkey Kong Country Returns, and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And I'm going to talk about more of those in the next video. So I'm going to talk more about Donkey Kong as well. But, these games were amazing. And it was also followed up by Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. In this game, Dixie Kong is the hero. She's the main character. And her sidekick is Kitty Kong. Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong are not in this one. It's about Dixie Kong and Kitty Kong on a journey. And I don't know, I think the story is Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong gets kidnapped by Dr. Krulstein. That's his name. But yeah, all 3 games were amazing. I enjoyed the Donkey Kong Country series. I enjoyed all 3 games. At first, I admit, I wasn't too crazy about the 3rd Donkey Kong Country game, because I remember when I played it back then, a friend of mine named Junior had it, and to me it was hard. I didn't really enjoy it that much. It's just, back then when I played it, it seemed harder than the first two games. But now, when I play it now, because I got it on my Wii U, I got all three games on my Wii U. The first, Donkey Kong Country, the second one, and the third. And now it actually seems easy. It seems easier than the first two games. You know, I think it's either in some ways easier than the second game. You know, Donkey Kong Country 3. And this game had a great soundtrack. But to me, I still feel that the first two games were a little more memorable. So I remember playing them more, the first two games, which was Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong Quest. But I did enjoy the third game too, but I just feel like the first two games had, the worlds were better and the levels were a little more in detail, you know. But I enjoyed the Donkey Kong Country series. I even like Donkey Kong 64. Which I think they was going to call it Donkey Kong Country 64, but they end up calling it Donkey Kong 64. Although Donkey Kong 64, in my opinion, wasn't as great as the three games for the Super Nintendo. Wasn't as great as Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Country 3, but it still was fun. You know, I still like Donkey Kong Country 64. It was inspired by more games like Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Wii and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Wii U. Those games are great too. You know, I want to talk more about those games too, you know, because they're great games, you know. And those games were made by Rare. I think the last games that was made by Rare was Banjo-Kazooie